A childhood friend I hadn't seen in 7 years has returned home. The first thing she did upon returning was ask me to marry her. Before the wedding, Liu Ryan said that after we get married, we won't interfere in each other's lives. I won't bother you, and I won't touch you. Likewise, you don't have to meddle in my affairs either. On the first day after the wedding, Liu Ryan smiled with a mischievous glint in her eyes. Did I ever say that? My husband Liu Ryan has returned from abroad. I found out from scrolling through my social media feed. Someone who never posts anything suddenly dropped a picture of their location at the airport. I couldn't help but click on her profile to double check. Sure enough, it was Liu Ryan. It seems that the longer one lives, the more one witnesses. I clicked on the image, which had no caption, and gave it another look. For some reason, I was reminded of the first page of a CEO romance novel. They all seem to begin with someone's return. I could almost hear her internal monologue. I'm back now, ... This time, I will reclaim what's rightfully mine. I lay on my bed and imagined Liu Ryan saying those words. Suddenly, I burst out laughing. And I laughed quite loudly. Come on, a tomboy pretending to be all grown up? That's definitely something to laugh about. But by evening, the tomboy I remembered had blossomed into a beautiful and captivating woman. Now she was sitting across from me with poise and grace, but the request she made was so absurd that I couldn't laugh anymore. If you're going to marry someone anyway, why not marry me? Liu Ryan stood before me, composed and unruffled, as if she were discussing something trivial. I was so shocked that I slapped the table, but I forgot that the table in this upscale restaurant was made of marble. I slapped the table with my hand, and the table didn't even budge. Instead, my palm was buzzing with numbness. I hissed in pain, pulled my hand back, and shook it off. When I met Liu Ryan's gaze, I noticed she was squinting at me with a smile, as if mocking my foolishness. The warm light cast over Liu Ryan made her look like she was glowing. Her features were delicate, yet her presence was overpowering. Had this tomboy always been so beautiful? Why hadn't I noticed before? Could it be that living abroad taught her some secret beauty tricks? Maybe Liu Ryan discovered them after leaving. My thoughts were wandering further and further. I quickly pulled the reins on my runaway imagination, forcing it back into line. I spoke like a parent scolding their child. Do you even know what you're saying? Liu Ryan crossed her arms. Her gaze locked onto me. Of course I know, but if you didn't hear me clearly, I can say it again. I picked up the glass of water on the table, took a big sip, then gripped the edge of the table and stared hard at Liu Ryan. I was beginning to wonder if she had lost her mind. How else could she say something like marrying me? Liu Ryan and I were childhood friends, though perhaps frenemies is a more accurate term for our relationship, because I always thought Liu Ryan disliked me. Our families were neighbors, and my mom was best friends with Liu's mom. What's more, Liu Ryan and I were born on the same day, but I was born an hour earlier than her. Maybe it was because I was born an hour earlier than her that I always managed to outshine her in everything. At that age, I looked at the small and short Liu Ryan, arms crossed, proudly demanding that she call me Big Brother. I think Liu Ryan was defiant even then. She would lift her little head with short hair, wearing a look of disdain. It was as if she were saying, "Dream on if you think I'll call you that." I didn't achieve my goal, but I wasn't about to give up on making her call me Big Brother. So I changed my strategy. Liu Ryan and I attended the same elementary school, even though neither of us wanted to. Under the pressure of our moms, we were forced to hold hands and walk to and from school together. Sometimes, as we went to and from school, we'd encounter parents picking up their kids. Not knowing the situation, they'd see the two of us, one tall and one short, and always smile brightly, saying, "Oh wow, look at the big brother taking his little brother to school. How responsible." That's when I'd flash my signature smile. My mom always told me, as the older brother, You have to take care of your younger brother. So naturally, I'd soak up the compliments from the adults. Such a responsible big brother. And the little brother is so cute too. He's as pretty as a little girl. I'd grin with pride, glancing at little Liu Ryan. She'd stand there with her hands on her hips, stomping her foot. I'm a girl, I could tell. Liu Ryan was furious, but what could she do? She was small. And she looked just like a tomboy. Back then, life was interesting because of her. Life was filled with joy at every turn. When we reached middle school, I no longer insisted that Liu Ryan call me Big Brother, because I had other, more interesting things to focus on. A budding heart. I guess everyone goes through that phase during their youth, and I was no exception. My attention shifted to a girl in the grade below me. I wasn't sure if it was love, but I couldn't stop myself from wanting to chase after her and get closer. Like many love-struck teens, I wrote her a love letter. But the first person to see the letter wasn't her. It was Liu Ryan. She held the pink paper in her hand. Looking at me with a disdainful expression, she sneered, "Kikyung, your taste is terrible." Though she had grown taller, she was still shorter than me. Her hair had grown longer, and her figure had changed significantly. But her tone was still that of an immature little girl. My newly sprouted feelings were instantly crushed by her scorn. I exploded in that moment, and coldly snapped, "Who told you to go through my bag? Stay away from me." Liu Ryan's expression didn't change at all. She just glanced at me, placed the letter back on the table, and walked away without looking back. The next day, my parents found out about my early romance. They gave me a joint lecture that lasted the entire evening. My first thought was that Liu Ryan had ratted me out. After all, she had been holding a grudge against me for years because of our childhood squabbles. I rushed to her house to confront her. She looked at me and didn't deny it. This time, it was my turn to storm out and slam the door behind me. Our already not-so-great relationship started to freeze over. We became like strangers. Even if we ran into each other, we'd just exchange a look of disgust and then walk away. In the third year of middle school, when I saw Liu Ryan wearing a dress, I was only slightly surprised. We didn't exchange any words. After that, the hectic high school years flew by, and I got into my dream university. Meanwhile, Liu Ryan chose to go abroad. We never kept in touch again, as far as I know, and he is busy trying to set you up on blind dates. And I happen to need a partner in name only. Besides, getting married would fulfill both our parents' wishes. Why not go for it? Liu Ryan said calmly without rushing. My first reaction was, "How do you know about my blind dates all the way across the ocean?" Then I realized that my mom had probably spread the news of my blind dates far and wide, and maybe even across the sea. It wasn't impossible at this point. Here's how it went down. A while ago, I casually mentioned over dinner that I wasn't planning on getting married. I wanted to live on my own. To my surprise, my mom strongly opposed the idea, so much so that she put together a whole list of potential blind dates overnight. I was practically on the verge of a meltdown. Lately, every time I stepped out of the house, neighbors would greet me with, "So Kikyung, off to another blind date?" They made it sound like I was desperately avoiding marriage. As for Liu Ryan saying that our marriage could fulfill our parents' wishes, it actually goes back to when we were kids. Since I was little, Aunt Liu had already decided I would be her son-in-law. Back then, the adults from both families would always joke about how Liu Ryan would marry me when she grew up. I still remember little Liu Ryan standing there, all cool, refusing to say a word. I glanced at her, pouting and angrily declaring, "No way, I don't want to marry a tomboy." My mom heard that and was so furious she wanted to smack me. But Uncle Liu and Aunt Liu protected me, laughing and saying, "Wait till little Ryan grows up and her hair grows longer. Then she marry Kikyung." Who would have thought that as we grew older, we drift further and further apart? If my mom and Aunt Liu found out that we were talking again, and that it had even escalated to marriage, they'd probably faint from joy. But what did Liu Ryan mean by a partner in name only? Liu Ryan looked at me like I was an idiot and explained it means that after we get married, we won't interfere with each other's lives. I won't control you, and I won't touch you. Likewise, you don't need to meddle in my affairs. This plot felt strangely familiar, like something out of a novel. My eyes lit up, and I couldn't resist asking, does this also come with a clause that says I'll get $5 million when the contract ends? Liu Ryan seemed utterly speechless by my comment. She slowly replied, Kikyong, why are you still this ridiculous? All I did when we were kids was sell her homework answers to the entire class for 50 cents a copy. She's so petty. Besides, if you don't love money, what's the point of living? She even said she'd give me $5 million a year. I was too stunned to speak. Do rich people always talk this extravagantly? Does this mean I could open several more coffee shops? I pursed my lips and smiled, giving her an okay hand gesture. News of her marriage spread quickly to both families. We were summoned back home. The four parents took turns interrogating us. When did you two get together? I exchanged a glance with Liu Ryan. She calmly replied, on Kikyong's birthday last year. I confessed to him, and he likes me too, so we've been together since then. As soon as she finished speaking, she grabbed my hand, fingers interlocking with mine. A jolt of electricity ran through my palm, sending a tingling sensation. We're just talking. There's no need to hold hands. I struggled for a moment, but couldn't break free, so I just turned to the four parents and gave a sheepish grin. And Liu had a sudden look of realization on her face and said to my mom, see, I told you. The moment I mentioned you were setting up a blind date for Kikyong, this girl rushed back right away. She was scared someone would snatch him away. Uncle Liu, more serious than the others, frowned and said, Ryan, you've been hiding this from us for so long? My dad chimed in, now it makes sense why Kikyong was so against those blind dates. So that's how it was. My mom's probing gaze shifted back and forth between me and Liu Ryan, before finally settling on Liu Ryan. Ryan, is what you're saying true? Liu Ryan nodded. My mom immediately lit up with joy, completely ignoring me, and dragged Aunt Liu off to start discussing wedding dates. Wait, Mom, can't you at least hear me out? Aren't I the one getting married here? It's supposed to be the two of us deciding. Yet Liu Ryan and I were left on the sidelines. The four parents passionately debated our wedding plans. I rolled my eyes at Liu Ryan, signaling for her to let go of my hand. She caught on immediately, and without a word, released her grip, leaving the two of us, the soon-to-be married couple, sitting awkwardly on the couch. The atmosphere suddenly became a bit tense, as I recalled Liu Ryan's straight-faced lie from earlier. I couldn't help but think, Liu Ryan has really become skilled at lying now. She's mastered the art of deception. Liu Ryan looked at me, her eyes unreadable, as deep as a well. I couldn't help but shiver. Why did the room suddenly feel so chilly? Our wedding date was set for the 1st of next month. There were just a little over 10 days left. I lay in bed, tossing and turning. Was agreeing to marry Liu Ryan really the right choice? The voice of my buddy came through the phone. Oh, dude, that's amazing. If you don't want to marry her, I'll gladly take your place. Why doesn't stuff like this ever happen to me? I'd love to have a wife who doesn't care about me and still gives me $5 million a year. Hearing ye fans say that, I started to reconsider. Suddenly, I felt that marrying Liu Ryan was the right choice. Ever since that middle school crush was abruptly cut short after I caught her picking her nose, I hadn't developed feelings for any other girl. I had already resigned myself to the fate of being single for life. Agreeing to my mom's matchmaking was just a way to appease her. After all, I had plenty of tricks up my sleeve to ruin those blind dates. Liu Ryan's sudden return had saved me from the mess I was in. Besides, given our relationship, getting married meant I could still enjoy the single life. Classmate Kikyong, Isn't this exactly what you've always wanted? Yi Fan's words suddenly made everything clear to me. Wealth, freedom, and a wife who wouldn't interfere with my life. This was the life most people only dreamed of. I think I might actually be looking forward to marrying Liu Ryan now. But when the wedding day finally arrived, I was stunned. Is it too late to regret this now? Can someone explain to me why this wedding had to be such a grand affair? When the ceremony finally came to an end, Liu Ryan casually took my arm as we got into the luxurious Rolls-Royce. The driver began heading toward our marital home, located in the expensive district of the eastern part of the city. The drive was a bit long, so I dozed off for a while. By the time I woke up, I found myself not in the car but on a couch. Stretching, I yawned, slowly opening my eyes. The first thing I saw was Liu Ryan sitting across from me, watching me with amusement. She was wearing a strapless red dress, its cinched waist accentuating her figure, with the hem slightly split for a subtle yet striking effect. Because of her relaxed posture, a large expanse of her skin was exposed. Noticing that I had woken up and was staring at her, she discreetly adjusted her dress, pulling it slightly wider. I was instantly embarrassed, wishing I could disappear into the ground. Awkwardly, I averted my gaze. I was exhausted, and all I wanted was to go to sleep. I opened my mouth to ask Liu Ryan which room I was staying in, but before I could finish, her phone rang. She frowned and left without answering me. At least tell me where my room is. Resigned, I took a tour of the villa, but I couldn't figure out which room to sleep in. In the end, I fell asleep on the couch. In my sleep, I felt someone holding me, soft and fragrant. I turned over and continued to sleep. When I woke up again, I was shocked beyond words. At that moment, I was clinging to her like an octopus, wrapped around her completely. She seemed to sense the movement, slowly opening her sleepy eyes. Our gazes met. What greeted me was Liu Ryan's beautiful face. I couldn't deny it. She looked stunning even without makeup. Once again, I couldn't help but marvel inside. This little girl had really grown up. How long are you going to keep staring before you get off me? Her lazy voice pulled me out of my thoughts. I quickly flipped over, scrambling off Liu Ryan, but I moved too fast and ended up rolling off the edge of the couch. She turned over with a helpless expression, gazing at me. I felt a bit awkward and blurted, "Why are you here?" Liu Ryan, unfazed, calmly replied, "Where else should I be? ... In the bedroom?" I stared at her, completely confused. Liu Ruyan blinked innocently at He Kong. "We're married now. You're my husband. Of course, we should sleep together." I was utterly confused by Liu Ruyan's words. Something didn't seem quite right. Were we supposed to stay out of each other's business after the wedding? I asked her directly. Liu Ruyan didn't respond. She got up in front of me, gracefully stretching with a delicate yawn. I was stunned. What did I just see? It was a red silk nightgown. She leaned toward me. Her fingers brushed lightly at the corner of my mouth. A mischievous smile played on her lips. Did I ever say that? I never expected such a change in Liu Ruyan's demeanor. She left me with a remark that completely short-circuited my brain. Then she turned and walked into the bedroom. I stood there in a daze for a moment. Then I immediately chased after her, shouting, "Did you forget what you said before?" I ran too fast and crashed headlong into Liu Ruyan, who had suddenly turned around. She steadied herself, looking at me with confusion. I composed myself, took a deep breath. "Are you trying to avoid giving me the 5 million? So you're pretending to be all innocent?" Liu Ruyan was clearly taken aback by my question. Her body stiffened, her elegant brows furrowed slightly. She seemed a bit helpless. "He Kong, I really want to open up your head and see what's inside." I rubbed my shoulders and noticed Liu Ruyan's gaze. It flickered unnaturally. A blush spread across her cheeks and ears. Clearly, she was the one threatening me. So why did it feel like I was the one harassing her? I avoided her gaze and cleared my throat awkwardly. My voice was a bit low. Go change your clothes. What's wrong with my clothes? At that moment, her nightgown barely covered her thighs, due to the thinness of the straps. One of them had unknowingly slipped down her arm. Her exposed skin gleamed unexpectedly. She paused for a moment, her gaze gradually heated up. I gasped and quickly fled the scene. The entire morning passed in a flurry of clumsiness and speechlessness. I dressed properly, sat at the dining table, and watched Liu Ruyan busying herself in the kitchen. I rested my head on my hand, pondering. Where did things go wrong? How did Liu Ruyan suddenly become a different person? I shook my head, unable to figure it out. After a while, Liu Ruyan placed a simple meal in front of me, not sure if it was breakfast or lunch. Since last night, I hadn't eaten much. My stomach was already growling. I buried my head and devoured the rice in my bowl. When I was almost finished, I reluctantly lifted my head from the bowl. Maybe I should just move out. As the saying goes, it's hard to talk back after taking someone's favor. After saying this, I felt a bit unsure inside. Sure enough, Liu Ruyan didn't say anything for a long time. I looked up, feeling slightly less confident. Finally, the usually calm Liu Ruyan reacted. She put down her chopsticks, went to the bedroom, and returned holding two small red booklets. A smile she couldn't suppress playing on her lips. The marriage certificates are real. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Damn, it seems like I've accidentally boarded a pirate ship. After the meal, Liu Ruyan gradually started organizing my belongings. She placed them into the master bedroom. I sat there slumped, staring at her motionlessly. So this is what Liu Ruyan meant by staying out of each other's business. I've never seen two people who stay out of each other's business, but still put their clothes in the same closet. And why did she throw away my patterned boxes? There are limits to what I can tolerate. I rushed over and stood in front of the wardrobe before her hand could fall. Wise men know when to yield, they say. I immediately shouted, stop. Fine, fine. I don't want the boxes anymore. It's okay, I'll just buy new ones later. As I hunched my shoulders, preparing to escape, Liu Ruyan grabbed me and pulled me back. I was trapped between her and the wardrobe. I carefully said, please don't hit me. She smiled sweetly. Her hands landed on my cheeks, gently pinching them. She seemed to be thinking of something. Glancing at the trash bin, our He Kong is a bit cute. I won't hit you. I might kiss you though. Before I could react, a kiss landed on my cheek. Liu Ruyan had a satisfied look on her face, so close right in front of me. You. I stammered for a while, but couldn't get a full sentence out. In the end, I turned into a coward, locking myself in the room. What is even happening? Liu Ruyan didn't stick to the agreement, and actually kissed me. Feeling completely lost, I walked into the bathroom, washed my face, the sound of running water. I didn't hear the door click open. As my thoughts were still wildly chaotic, I was suddenly hugged from behind by a pair of soft hands. I let out a startled wah, and was immediately silenced by a hand covering my mouth. I couldn't believe it. Looking at Liu Ruyan, who had somehow appeared in the bathroom, I clearly remembered locking the door. Liu Ruyan released me, innocently poking her head out, and waved the key in her hand. Her expression was somewhat playful. Alright, I won't touch you. I glanced at her skeptically, as if I would believe that Liu Ruyan stayed silent for a while. Then she suddenly spoke slowly. That incident ... me who told on you. The topic changed so quickly, my brain didn't process it right away. I stared blankly for quite a while, before realizing what Liu Ruyan was talking about. In an instant, I felt my ears burning. My mind flashed back to when I was younger and more foolish. I actually knew for a long time that it wasn't Liu Ruyan who tattled. At that age, when I wasn't good at hiding things, I gave myself away. That love letter to my first crush. My mom had already noticed my little secret. She just never brought it up. until my grades started dropping to noticeably. They had no choice but to confront me about it. So Liu Ruyan never actually betrayed me. It was just that everything happened to coincidentally. And I chose not to believe her. Even after I learned the truth, I didn't choose to apologize to Liu Ruyan. At that age in my teens, my so-called pride was too strong. Several times I wanted to speak up but swallowed the words back down, hesitating. Liu Ruyan went abroad, and I never said anything in return. Now that Liu Ruyan had brought up the topic herself, I felt so ashamed that I couldn't lift my head. I wiped the water off my face, completely calmed down, and quietly said, "I know." This time, it was Liu Ruyan who was stunned. She looked at me silently, as if waiting for me to explain. I hesitantly explained the situation. Liu Ruyan remained silent for a long time. Finally, she let out a soft sigh. It sounded like she was relieved. The bathroom fell silent again. I shifted, ready to leave. Liu Ruyan suddenly asked, "Do you still like that person?" My mind was filled with question marks. Liu Ruyan's thoughts jumped too quickly. I could never keep up. But thankfully, she gave me time to think. After thinking for a while, I realized she was probably referring to that junior from middle school. I shook my head frantically. Nothing kills a crush faster than seeing them pick their nose right in front of you. Back then, I immediately sealed my heart off that very night. Liu Ruyan seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Then she asked, "Do you like anyone else now?" I didn't understand why she was asking, but I answered truthfully, no. Liu Ruyan moved closer to me, staring into my eyes. I was caught off guard by her actions. Standing there dumbly, my mind was in a whirl, but my ears heard very clearly. "From now on, try to like me." Since Liu Ruyan said that, asking me to try to like her. It's been half a month since I last saw her. Before leaving on her business trip, she said she hoped I would give her an answer when she returned. I have no idea what kind of answer she wants to hear. To be honest, I still don't believe Liu Ruyan could actually like me. What would she even like about me? Could it be that she likes me calling her a tomboy? Or that she likes how shamelessly I forced her to call me brother? Or perhaps she likes how I wrongly accused her without knowing the full story. Looking back on it all, it seems more likely that Liu Ruyan would dislike me. Besides, when someone likes you, there should always be some signs left behind. Isn't that right? Like the love letter I once wrote. But I haven't found a single piece of evidence that Liu Ruyan likes me. I sighed. Might as well stop thinking about it. It's exhausting. As Iju finished grinding the coffee beans, she noticed me sighing heavily. "Brother Kong, you're tasting the bitterness of love, huh? This whole morning, I've heard you sigh dozens of times." I lay on the rocking chair, pretending to glare at her. Bitter, it's killing me. It's all Liu Ruyan's fault for leaving. And leaving me with such a huge problem. Suddenly, I remembered, Ziju has more experience in relationships than I do. I sat up and called her over. "Ziju, my friend. Who chased whom first between you and your boyfriend?" Ziju pulled up a chair and sat down next to me comfortably, speaking in a gentle tone. "He chased me first. Actually, I knew he liked me for a long time. He's so dense. Kept staring at me every day and thought I didn't notice. He always bought strange little things and came up with awkward excuses to give them to me. As I listened, I thought to myself, see, when someone likes you, the other person will notice. If Liu Ruyan liked me, how could I not know? Brother Kong, do you have someone you like?" Ziju suddenly asked. I suddenly felt a bit flustered. I shook my head awkwardly. She didn't know that I was already married. My relationship with Liu Ruyan is so complicated right now. Forget it, I'll explain it later. I looked out at the street. It was the middle of the day. The sun was scorching hot. There wasn't a single person on the street. Ziju closed the shop. "Take the afternoon off and go on a date with your boyfriend." As soon as she heard that, Ziju jumped up excitedly, making a heart shape with her hands. Brother Kong, you're the best boss ever. You're definitely going to have a sweet romance. I smiled. Whether it'll be sweet or not, I don't know. But right now, I'm pretty confused. After Ziju left, I stayed in the attic on the second floor for the entire afternoon. Until the sun was almost setting, I heard a familiar voice coming from downstairs. Yifan was calling for me with a pack of beer, fried chicken, and fries. We sat on the terrace and started drinking. I told Yifan about everything that had happened with Liu Ruyan. He suddenly sat up straight, with a knowing look on his face. Brother Kong, congratulations, you've fallen for Liu Ruyan. Nonsense, I immediately stood up, wobbling to refute him. No way, Liu Ruyan kissed you. What was your reaction? At that moment, Yifan asked me. His eyes seemed to wander. What was my reaction at that time? Yifan continued. Back in our freshman year, our department had a mixer with the literature department. During that game of truth or dare, you almost kissed a girl. What was your reaction afterward? You ended up hugging the toilet and throwing up. I was stunned. When Liu Ruyan kissed me, I remember feeling more nervous and confused. I didn't really resist much. And if it wasn't Liu Ruyan who proposed marriage, would I have agreed? Kong, you don't really need that 5 million, do you? Yifan's question hit me hard. If it had been someone else proposing marriage to me, would I have agreed? Without even thinking. My answer was no. I opened my mouth, trying to argue with Yifan, but in the end, I couldn't say a word. The scene in front of me became blurry. I wobbled and grabbed onto the nearby railing, my heart filled with a mix of excitement and fear. So, was it because of Ruyan that I agreed? Then Yifan leaned in. Let me tell you another secret. I turned my head, confused. Several times in college when you got drunk, you called out Liu Ruyan's name. I didn't know how I got back to the villa, since Liu Ruyan left on her business trip. I hadn't returned home. But today, somehow, I ended up here. As soon as I walked in, I got a call from Liu Ruyan's mom. She said there was something left at the door. She asked me to pick it up, and she was being all secretive about it, refusing to tell me what it was. I had no choice but to go back to the door. Sure enough, there was a small box lying on the ground. I took the box back to my room and carefully opened it. Inside was a small, square notebook. It looked like it had been there for a long time. The edges were yellowed and worn. I felt a strange sense of unease as I opened it. The handwriting on the first page was childish and awkward, as if the writer had only recently learned how to write. Kong, my name was written there. My heart skipped a beat. I turned another page. The writing was still crooked and uneven. I don't want Kong to be my brother. It was written by Liu Ruyan. I kept turning the pages. On every page, my name appeared. Kong doesn't like tomboys. I'm going to try hard to grow my hair long. Kong is a money grubber. When I grow up, I'm going to make lots of money and give it all to him. Kong has a dimple when he smiles. I kept flipping through, each entry revealing more. The handwriting became increasingly neat and sharp. Kong finally stopped making me call him brother. There are many people at school who like Kong, but he's so dense. He doesn't notice, but that's probably for the best. And he asked me to help organize King's backpack. I accidentally saw a letter. Kong has someone he likes. Kong has good taste. Kong is mad at me. Kong isn't talking to me anymore. As I reached this part, my hands couldn't help but tremble. It felt like something was tearing at my heart, a dull ache spreading through me. I steadied myself and continued flipping through the pages, but they were all blank. About 10 pages later, there was new writing. I'm going abroad. Kong didn't come to see me off. Another night passed. The next entry read, I like Kong. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. My mind was filled with the words from the notebook and the image of Liu Ruyan. Is this notebook the evidence I've been searching for that she likes me? I clutched my chest. It felt like a little person was inside, beating drums and making noise, keeping me from finding any peace. I forced myself to close my eyes, trying to stop overthinking. But even after half a turn of the clock's hands, I couldn't calm down. After struggling for a while, I picked up my phone and opened WeChat. Liu Ruyan's chat was at the very top. Since the day she left, she had been sending me messages every day, but they only ever said good morning or good night. I had never replied. I looked at the latest good night message and felt a sudden sense of urgency. I tapped my phone and typed a line, "When are you coming back?" As soon as I sent the message, the reply came almost instantly. "Tomorrow," it read, the words blunt and dry. I pouted and started typing again. But before I could send my message, another one popped up. "Brother, do you miss me?" Looking at that glaring word brother on the screen, I felt my ears getting hot. When we were kids, no matter how much I pressured her, Liu Ruyan never called me brother. But now she did. "Liu Ruyan, you're doing this on purpose, aren't you?" I threw the phone aside. Suddenly, it vibrated again. I picked it up. It was Liu Ruyan. I hesitated, unsure whether to answer or not. My finger moved on its own and hit the answer button. I slapped my right hand with my left, reminding myself to stay calm. Liu Ruyan's clear voice came through the phone. He conged. She paused, then called me brother again. "I miss you so much." She had never spoken to me in that tone before. I always thought Liu Ruyan was naturally cold. I used to wonder who the unlucky person would be to marry her, having to look at an ice block every day. They'd freeze to death sooner or later. But now, her voice was laced with sweetness and warmth, almost enough to melt me. My brain immediately short-circuited. The pounding in my chest grew louder. I felt a wave of heat wash over me. It was too embarrassing. We continued talking for a while longer. Mostly, it was Liu Ruyan speaking, while I listened because my language system had been completely overwhelmed by her tender words. I could barely manage to stammer out a single coherent sentence. After she finished teasing me, she asked if I had read her diary. I slowly regained my composure from the embarrassment. Pretending to be calm, I replied, "You had Andy send it to me on purpose, didn't you?" I could hear the amusement in her voice on the other end. "Looks like you're not completely clueless. But I had won scholarships every year in college. How could I be considered clueless?" I was about to retort when I heard Liu Ruyan call my name. He conged. The way she said it was like a gentle breeze. The soft syllables danced into my ears and fell tingling onto my heart. I couldn't help but hold my breath. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds later, I heard Liu Ruyan say, "I like you." From the moment I understood what liking someone meant, "I've liked you." Liu Ruyan successfully kept me awake all night. The next day, I had two huge dark circles under my eyes, feeling incredibly troubled. It was all Liu Ruyan's fault. In a daze, I heard Liu Ruyan's voice again, as if she was right next to me. My heart started to itch like it was being scratched by tiny ants. I tried to maintain my composure, patting my cheeks to wake myself up. Liu Ruyan wouldn't be back until the afternoon, and even then, she had to go to the office first to take care of some things. On a whim, I decided to go to Liu Ruyan's office. It was purely because I was bored, definitely not because I couldn't wait to see her. After coming up with excuses in my head, I carefully prepared myself and called a car to take me there. When I arrived at the company building, I found myself stuck at the card access gate. As I was debating whether to call Liu Ruyan or just head back home, a sharp-looking woman in business attire approached me. "Mr. He, are you here to see President Liu?" "I'm Zi Chen from finance. Let me take you upstairs." How did she know who I am? Puzzled, I followed her. We passed through security with no issues. On the way, I overheard a group of women chattering excitedly. "Wow, that's President Liu's husband. He's so handsome, they really suit each other. A match made in heaven. This is the first time we've seen President Liu's other half at our company. Wow, President Liu's husband is exactly my type. Brother, I'm all in. Do you dare compete with President Liu? Forget it, I'm not worthy. Once inside the elevator, I couldn't hold back and asked, "Do you all know me?" Zichen flashed a professional smile and replied, "Of course, on your wedding day. President Liu posted your wedding photo in the company group chat." Although she quickly retracted it. That's just the kind of thing Liu Ruyan would do. Feeling puzzled, I was led by Zichen to the office door. Just as I turned to thank her, I realized Zichen had already disappeared, leaving me standing alone at the door. I belatedly wondered, would my visit disrupt Liu Ruyan's work? Or would she be pleasantly surprised to see me? After a moment of hesitation, I pushed the door open and walked in. The first thing I saw was a handsome guy with short hair, sitting at Liu Ruyan's desk, chatting with her. I stared wide-eyed, frozen in place. The little excitement in my heart was instantly extinguished. I couldn't help but think, I really did interrupt her. Interrupted her. This handsome guy, the same person who said she liked me yesterday, is now openly having a private meeting in her office today. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I couldn't help but clench my fists. With a loud bang, I slammed my fist down on the desk. Liu Ruyan looked up at me in surprise. The handsome guy also turned his head at the sound. He looked at me. I looked at him. Wait, she's a woman. I stared at her, while Liu Ruyan's expression froze in shock. She took a sharp breath. "I didn't mean it," I said. "Do you believe me?" Liu Ruyan's eyebrows furrowed. Clearly, she didn't. She stood up and quickly walked over to me, taking my hand, carefully examining it. "Is your hand okay?" Then she leaned in close to my ear and whispered, "Brother, you sure hit hard." I trembled slightly, too scared to speak. The handsome guy I had mistaken for someone else watched with amusement, teasing, "You two have a rather unique way of greeting each other as a couple." I quickly blushed and stammered out an apology. "Sorry, I misunderstood." Taking a closer look, I realized it was Gu Chinking, Liu Ruyan's best friend from middle school. But why was she dressed like that? Looking exactly like a guy. I was perplexed. Liu Ruyan linked her arm through mine and said to Gu Chinking, with a hint of annoyance, "Wear a wig to work tomorrow. I don't want my husband's hand getting hurt a second time." Liu Ruyan's words made me feel even more embarrassed. Gu Chinking shrugged, trying to hold back her laughter, tears almost spilling out. Before I could react, Liu Ruyan grabbed my hand and led me out the door. As the door closed, I heard Gu Chinking's amused voice, "You two have a good time." Just like that, Liu Ruyan led me all the way to the underground parking lot. She pinned me against the car window. The atmosphere was a bit tense. Knowing I was in the wrong, I lowered my head and apologized. Just when I thought she was going to get angry, she held my hand and asked with concern, "Does your hand still hurt?" I had never seen this side of Liu Ruyan before, and my heart softened instantly. I gently cupped her chin, lifting her face, and kissed her on the forehead. "Sorry," I whispered. Liu Ruyan's eyes instantly brightened. She wrapped her arms around my neck. I watched as her face turned increasingly red. With a hint of nervousness, she asked, "He Kong, do you like me?" I stared at her hopeful expression, feeling both guilty and tender. "Yes, I like you. I really like you, Liu Ruyan." Almost as soon as the words left my mouth, Liu Ruyan leaned in and kissed my lips. Then she closed her eyes. Her long, curved eyelashes fluttered slightly. It was my first time kissing someone. I was a bit flustered, but soon I got the hang of it and started responding to her. She gasped for breath, whispering my name, "He Kong, I love you." The sound of a car horn snapped us back to reality. She quickly buried herself in my chest. I gently placed Liu Ruyan in the car and drove off. The warmth on her face didn't fade the entire drive, and I felt the same. My mind was a blur of emotions. When we got home, I looked at the table full of things, my face filled with concern. There were extravagant items, watches, belts, and even a car key. So Liu Ruyan really is that ruthless, domineering female CEO. I sighed, rubbing my forehead. Liu Ruyan playfully snuggled into my chest. I didn't know what style you liked, she said, so I bought a few options. Do you like them? I didn't respond. My mind was racing, thinking about how to return them all. That must have cost a fortune. Liu Ruyan, like she could read my mind, noticed my distraction and immediately stopped me from saying anything. Don't even think about returning them, Liu Ruyan firmly said. Fine, I won't return them. Liu Ruyan nodded in satisfaction. Then, full of joy, she threw herself into my arms. With a sudden yelp, she pushed me onto the bed. I became wary and asked, "What are you doing?" Liu Ruyan nuzzled against me like a kitten, her voice shy. "Isn't it time to fulfill your marital duties?" Maybe it was the alluring look in Liu Ruyan's eyes, but I found myself nodding as if under a spell. I don't know how much time passed, but eventually, with a hoarse voice, I said in a low tone, "No way, I need more money. Just 5 million isn't enough to make up for what I've given up my heart and my body." Hearing this, Liu Ruyan laughed softly in my ear. "Do you remember? When you turned 10, I gave you a card as a birthday gift." "Of course I remember," I replied. Liu Ruyan was so stingy back then, always giving me some worthless trinket. Even the cards that came in a 5-cent packet of instant noodles were better than what she gave me. At least those had cartoon characters printed on them. So in return, I gave 10-year-old Liu Ruyan a roll of my eyes. Liu Ruyan continued, "Do you know how much money was on that card?" The mention of money instantly caught my attention. "That was a bank card?" Then Liu Ruyan whispered a series of numbers in my ear. "I've been depositing money into that card every year, and the password is our birthday." My eyes widened with the realization. Suddenly, I sat up, my muscles aching but my mind sharp. I couldn't believe I had been so blind. I'd been using that card, worth a fortune, to prop up a table leg. Panic set in as I pushed her away, my eyes fixed on the door. "No, I have to go get it back." But Liu Ruyan wrapped her arms around my waist, clinging to me tightly. "It's not over yet, brother.